sitting Ida here in the shade of a rose bush with some hot chocolate, as usual. Sometimes you don't see it in the picture, but I almost always have a cup of chocolate somewhere around. Sometimes I forget to drink from it while I'm actually doing the video, but I'm not forgetting now. I wanted to do a quick video, I hope it's going to be quick, that was my plan, about being pagan, or witch for that matter, and having a non-pagan or non-witch partner, because this is something that comes up pretty frequently actually in social media. People asking about what it's like to have a non-pagan or non-witch partner, if it's okay to have a partner that doesn't share your pagan or witchy ways, how it works, what experiences people have. And as it so happens, I have a partner that isn't pagan and isn't a witch, so I thought I'd just like share my thoughts on it while having my chocolate. And there's nothing in witchcraft or in any kind of paganism that I know, at least, that says that you can't have a partner that isn't pagan or isn't witch. There's nothing there that says anything about your choice of partner at all, and I would be quite skeptical towards any kind of path that tells you anything at all about what kind of partner you should or shouldn't have. That would be a big alarm bell for me personally. But there are a lot of those paths out there, so you know, each to their own. But in terms of witchcraft and paganism, there's really nothing that says anything about that. And how it works, or if you're able to make it work, of course, it depends a lot on your personality and on your partner's personality, on the worldview of your partner, and those things in terms will depend on your respective backgrounds sometimes. I mean, as I said, there are paths out there that are fairly strict about not being together with certain kinds of people, and if your partner is part of one of those, you might run into problems, of course. But at the end of the day, I think it's more to do with personality, because there are always, no matter which path you're on, there are always going to be people that are not very tolerant of people that think different, and there are also, no matter what path you're on, there are always going to be people that prefer to look at the person rather than you know, whatever group they belong to. And so I can talk about my experiences, but of course they won't necessarily apply for everyone. My partner is an atheist. He's from a rather sort of conservative Hindu background, but he himself is an atheist, so he's not a Hindu, he's not practicing, he's not believing. But I want to point out also that having a partner that's an atheist and that's an atheist doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be fine, because there are also atheists, just as there are people from all other kinds of spiritualities and religions that are tolerant. There are also going to be atheists, of course, that are tolerant of your path, but there are also some atheists, in my experience, that are not at all tolerant when it comes to any kind of spirituality or religion, they're going to judge you and think you're stupid, no matter what you believe. So just because a person is an atheist doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be accepting of paganism or of witchcraft. But in my case, that has been it. It's been working out fine. It's like we work on, like our agreement is that I'm not going to try to convert him and he's not going to try to convert me, and that works fine. We don't talk a lot about my path, about my spirituality or spirituality at all, because it's not something he's particularly interested in. He knows sort of the broader aspects, what it is that I believe, and because he's asked, I don't tell him unless he asks. But he's asked some things, and when he asks, I tell him. He doesn't understand how or why I can believe in the things I do. It doesn't make sense to him, but he respects me enough to just sort of accept and respect that it is what I believe, and he's fine with that, even though he doesn't share it. And it works the other way around too. I don't really understand how he can be atheist, but a lot of people are, and so if that's what makes sense to him, he's free to be that. And I think also it could depend on like where you are in your relationship. I was pagan and a witch long before I met him, and I was very open with him with that quite early on in our relationship, because I was already decided that my spirituality is something that is very important to me, and I'm not going to choose a man before my spirituality. I'm not going to give up my spirituality for a man. And if someone can't accept my spirituality, then they're probably not for me anyway. They're probably not the best partner for me anyway. So I was very, very open from the beginning about that. And I think that helped too. He knew from the beginning what he was getting into. I think it could be perhaps sometimes more difficult if you're already in a long-term relationship and then one of you decide to change your spirituality or decide to change your path, especially if sharing that, especially if being on the same path has meant a lot to you as a couple before. I think then it can be more difficult sometimes for the other one to accept that, because it's always difficult when someone that you're close to, when they change. It's not unusual that people have problems with that, because you're used to that person being in a certain way, and then suddenly they change, and that changes the dynamics of the relationship, and that can like start a whole it can change a lot, and it can start a lot of thoughts, and it can be scary when someone changes like that, and you can be afraid of losing if you have a good relationship and suddenly, or not so suddenly, the partner changes, you can be scared of losing that good relationship that you have. And of course, you're going to have to try to work through that. And of course, you won't be able to do that unless your partner is able to respect your choices and accept them. I mean, any relationship will hinge on accepting each other as they are and respect. Without that, what kind of relationship is it anyway? And I see that a lot in social media. People that are having problems with their partner not accepting their spiritual path, and it's tough. I can imagine. Since I've not really been in that situation, I might not be the right person to give advice. But of course, I mean, you might end up in a situation where you have to choose, like, how important is your spirituality, and how important is your relationship? Which one is more important? Which one is it you're going to choose? And that's not necessarily an easy choice. But what I tend to think, I'm sorry, I'm getting uncomfortable here. What I tend to think in these situations is like, if your partner doesn't respect your spirituality and doesn't accept it, or like if they speak in a condescending way about your spirituality, or sort of put you down for the things you believe in, I would think like, is that really their place to do that? What rights do they have to do that? If they do that when it comes to your spirituality, in what other ways is it that they don't respect you? Or in what other ways is it that they try to control you and decide who you should be? What other ways aren't they accepting you for who you really are? And is that really a healthy relationship? And obviously I can't tell you what's right for anyone than for me, but I think like it's worth thinking and asking yourself these questions. What kind of relationship is it really if your partner doesn't want to accept you for who you are, or isn't respecting you when you're doing your spirituality, when you're being yourself in that way? What kind of relationship is that? And is that really a relationship that is good and healthy for you? And how are you going to best handle that? So I think that it can be rather interesting to be with someone who doesn't share my own spiritual views, because you can have, as long as you are open-minded and tolerant, you can have a lot of great exchanges about that. You can have you can discuss things. It's interesting to discuss things with someone who doesn't think exactly like you. You can get a lot of insights from that. But on the other hand, I sometimes miss having someone to share my spirituality with now. I have friends to do that, but like at home in the sort of family setting, it would be nice to celebrate together with my partner and do these sort of pagan-y witchy things together as a couple. Which obviously I can't. I'll have to do it on my own. But I'm doing it. Like, I have my altar in my home, and I do my rituals and I do my spells. And he doesn't mind. He just lets me do them, which is, I would have insisted on. But those are my thoughts on having a non-pagan or non-witchy partner. I hope this was, at least a little bit interesting. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.